Hi guys, Guillermo is here. Welcome back to the Revit architectural training tutorial. In this chapter, I'll show you how to create curtain wall elements, its parameters, and components. Let's begin. I'm going to start this chapter defining what is a curtain wall. A curtain wall is any exterior wall that is attached to the building structure, and which does not carry the floor or roof loads of the building. In common usage, curtain walls are often defined as thin, usually aluminum framed walls containing infills of glass, metal panels, or thin stone. Curtain walls can do much more than glazed walls. They can be used for walls with complex patterns, special railings, and even casework. Curtain walls contains most properties of a basic walls. They have bottom and top constraints and their profile can be modified. The difference is with these following features. The overall curtain wall itself. You can think of this as the primary host. You cannot have the other elements that compose it if you don't have a piece of curtain wall to start with. Curtain grids. Curtain grids are division created on the walls. These division can be horizontal or vertical. Mullions. Mullions are elements that can be created on each curtain grid segment, as well as on each curtain wall extremities. Curtain panels. Curtain panels are rectangular elements located between each curtain grids. Curtain walls are created in the same way as regular walls. Select the Wall tool in the Architecture tab. The difference is that when selecting a type, you have to scroll down to select a wall in the curtain wall category. These walls have a glass icon next to them. You can use the default Revit curtain wall types to set up curtain walls. These wall types provide 3 levels of complexity: curtain wall, exterior glazing, and storefront. Curtain wall has no grids or mullions. There are no rules associated with this wall type. This wall type provides the most flexibility. Exterior glazing has preset grids. The grid rules can be changed if the setting is not suitable. Storefront has preset grids and mullions. The grid and mullion rules can be changed if the settings are not suitable. So, let's go ahead and build a Revit curtain wall from scratch. Start on in a plan view. Remember that this is the easiest view orientation by far in which to create Revit walls. Go to the Architecture menu tab, Build panel, and select the Wall tool. From the Type selector in the Properties palette, go ahead and select the Curtain Wall Empty type from the Curtain Wall group. Curtain walls and walls are drawn in the same way. You can now click in the floor plan view to designate the start point of your curtain wall. After your initial click, move your cursor to define the direction and length of the first curtain wall segment. Note how Revit present temporary dimensions to help you gauge the length of the object you are defining. If you now switch to a 3D view, you can see the piece of curtain wall that we have just placed. Just to clarify, what we have here is one single piece of curtain wall, hosting a single curtain panel, which just happens to be the same size as the curtain wall itself. This is because we haven't yet subdivided it into small panels using curtain grid lines. And that is exactly what we are going to do next. What we would normally do now is to subdivide it using curtain grid lines in an elevation view. Also, you can do it in a 3D view, but it's far easier in an elevation view. To add curtain grid lines, go to the Architecture tab, Build panel, and select the Curtain Grid tool. Now you need to hover over one of the edges of your curtain wall. As you do so, you will see Revit offers you the opportunity to place a curtain grid line. You can only place curtain grid lines by having your cursor over one of the edges of your overall curtain wall. Hovering anywhere inside the perimeter will not allow you to do so. Just left-click near the edge of the curtain wall, and the grid line will be created. Now you can adjust the dimensions. The Curtain Grid tool can create both vertical and horizontal grid lines. With all the grid lines placed on the curtain wall, it is time to start with the curtain panels. There is no command to specially create curtain panels. They are automatically created just by placing curtain grid lines onto the face of your curtain wall. Another way to explain this is that curtain panels are simply the space occupied inside the perimeter of curtain grid lines. Now here's the slightly complicated part. Curtain panels can be either system families or component families. System family curtain panels are fairly simplistic. They can comprise of basically a material and a thickness for it. Conversely, loadable component family curtain panels can be quite elaborate and contain 3D textures and elements such as the typical spider connectors at the corners. For the purpose of this beginner's guide, I'm going to keep with the system family curtain panels. If you want to change the type of one of your curtain panels, you first need to select it. Now this can be tricky to the uninitiated. By far the easiest way to do so is to place your cursor over one of the perimeter edges of the curtain panel you wish to select. Then, before clicking your mouse, use the Tab key on your keyboard to cycle through the nearby elements that Revit can select. Just take a few seconds to keep hitting Tab and see how Revit cycles through the following. So you can see that there's a lot going on all in the same space when it comes to curtain walls, curtain panels, curtain grid lines, and mullions. So keep cycling through using the Tab key until the perimeter of the curtain panel highlights. Now you can left-click your mouse to select this element. If you've selected the wrong element, just cancel out of the selection and use the Tab key to cycle through again. Once you have the curtain panel selected, you will see its current type in the Properties palette. So you can go ahead and select a different type from the drop-down selector. You can see that the current type shown here is called System Panel Glazed. Most real-world curtain wall systems have an extruded section between the panels. These hold the panels in place and provide a degree of rigidity and structure to the composition. In Revit, these elements are called mullions. Mullions can only be placed or hosted onto curtain grid lines. So you'll need some curtain grid lines on your curtain wall elements in order to host your mullions. To add mullions, go to the Architecture menu tab, Build panel, and select the Mullion tool. Once you have selected this tool, hover over the curtain grid lines you placed in the last step. When you click on one of these grid lines, mullion segments are added to the entire length of that particular curtain grid line. Now before you go any further, take a look at the right-hand side of the ribbon menu and make sure you still have the Mullion tool selected. Here you have some option as to how you add your mullion segments. By default you add mullion segments to the entire length of the selected curtain grid line, hence grid line is highlighted in blue. But you do have two further options: grid line segment and all grid lines. Let's discuss each of those in turn. Grid line segment. This will apply a single mullion segment to just a portion of the grid line in question. A segment of a curtain grid line is the length along a grid line between the points where it is intersected by other grid lines. All grid lines. This is a really useful option. Just one click on any of your curtain grid lines and mullions are instantly applied to all the curtain grid lines on that particular section of curtain wall. So what if you want to actually combine two adjacent curtain panels and create just one single panel? I have identified two curtain panels, numbered 1 and 2. What we want to do is make these into a single panel. First of all, we need to delete the segment of mullion. Go ahead and select the mullion segment. Remember the trick of hovering over it and using the tab key to cycle through the available elements. Once selected, go ahead and hit the delete key. But we still have two separate curtain panels adjacent to each other. What we need to do is actually delete a segment of curtain grid line also. So go ahead and select the vertical curtain grid line between the two panels. Again, remember to use the tab key to make this selection process easier. Once the vertical curtain grid line is selected, take a look at the far right hand side of the ribbon menu. You will now see the option to add/remove segments from this grid line. Go ahead and click on the Add/Remove Segments tool. And then simply click on the segment of curtain grid line that you wish to delete. And that's it. Once you deselect the vertical curtain grid line, you will see that the two curtain panels have now been replaced by a single curtain panel. Please note, the vertical curtain grid line remains in essence. That's why it can still host mullion segments above and below your new single panel. It's just that a segment of the curtain grid line has been removed. And you'll recall from the start of this tutorial that it is only the curtain grid lines that actually form the curtain panels. Now you have a single curtain panel, you can go ahead and change its type as appropriate. Just select it and choose a different type from the drop-down type selector. Depending on the Revit template that you are using, you probably just have a small selection of curtain panels to choose from in your current project. At some point, you will need to load additional curtain panels into your project. Doing so is easy. Just navigate to the Insert menu, Load from Library panel, and choose Load Family. When the file browser opens, navigate to the Curtain Wall Panels folder. Choose from one of the many curtain wall panel families included in your default installation library. A single click on each one in turn will bring up a thumbnail preview to see what they look like. Quite often you will need to form openings in your curtain wall. These could be in the form of doors, windows, or just an opening. Conventional Revit doors and windows cannot be directly inserted into a curtain wall. So what you need to do is use a curtain panel that has been modeled as a door, window, or other type of opening. A number of these custom curtain panels have been included for you in the installation library. It is quite possible to model your own custom openings as curtain panels, but this is beyond the scope of a beginner's course. Okay, let's add a door in our curtain wall. First of all, we need to load this custom curtain wall panel from the Revit library. Go to Insert tab, Load from Library panel, and select Load Family. This time open the folder called Doors, and select one of the door types available for curtain wall. Sometimes, a curtain wall is part of a larger, solid wall. In Revit we have the ability to embed one wall into another. Let's take a look at a simple example. First of all, I'm going to place a single length of basic wall. Now I'm going to place a shorter length of curtain wall empty directly on top of the basic wall I have just placed. I placed the shorter section of curtain wall directly over the section of basic wall. As soon as I did it, I instantly got an error message. This is normal. It basically just says, that the two walls are overlapping, and if you want to embed one into the other, you need to use the Cut Geometry tool. Switch to the Modify tab menu and find the Cut Geometry tool, located on the Geometry panel. Go ahead and select the Cut Geometry tool. This tool operates with 2 clicks. The first click is to select the object that you want to cut, so the main longer wall in our example. The second click is to select the object that you want to cut with, so the curtain wall element in our example. The curtain wall element is now embedded in the main basic wall. If you do not want to use the Cut Geometry tool each time, you can always edit the type parameters for the curtain wall in question. The type parameter named Automatically Embed is switched off by default. If you want to automatically embed curtain walls in irregular walls, just turn on this type parameter. So far we have just concentrated on straight runs of curtain wall. Obviously at some point you will need your curtain walls to go around corners. If you create a length of curtain wall, and then immediately draw another segment at 90 degrees to the first one, you will notice that the curtain panels don't meet at the corner. This is because they are sitting proud of the center line of the curtain wall itself. You can adjust this offset in the curtain panels type parameters. If we add mullions to both instances of curtain wall, we end up with a duplication of mullions at the corner. In order to rectify this, we first need to delete one of the mullions. It does not matter which one. The crucial thing is that we only need just one mullion at the corner. So go ahead and delete one of them. The final step is to change the type of this mullion to one that is specially suited to a corner condition. Select the current mullion and then expand the drop-down type selector in the Properties palette. Notice how some of the mullion types have the word corner in their name. These types are specially made for corner conditions. I'm going to select each type in turn, and seeing what it looks like in the model. So what we have looked at so far in this tutorial is how to create a curtain wall from scratch. In reality there will be many instances where you don't want to go through this process each time. This is when we would look to a curtain system. This is where we predefine the composition of our curtain wall in terms of panel type, spacing of the horizontal and vertical grids, panel offsets, etc. We can set that up once in our office template, and have it available for each new Revit project we start.